it's now time for the tale of the tape. Learn after that amazing video interlude. It's now time for the tale of the tape. We're going over Old School and The Hangover. Are you ready?
I couldn't be more ready.
Tale of the tape. All right. So, Old School, release date February 21st, 2003. The Hangover Part 1 release date June 5th, 2009. Fun fact, saw both of these movies in theaters multiple times.
Same.
Old School, we got a runtime 1 hour 31 minutes. The Hangover Part 1, we got a runtime 1 hour 40 minutes. So that's, R-rated comedies, it's you're not going too long. Hour and a half, buck and a half, buck and a quarter, that's what we're doing.
Sub 2, right? Sub 2 is a sweet
always
spot for
that's
that.
the formula for comedy. Film budgets. Old School, we got 20 mil film budget. 20 mil. Hangover Part 1, 35 mil. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's really the difference between a movie that was made in 2003 and a movie that was made in 2009. I think 20 mil and 35 mil, it's probably about the same ask. You know what I mean? Like 6 years later, things have inflated, but they're probably being made.
Same director, though. I wonder how much is spent on talent as opposed to you got to think Hangover that's shot in Vegas. That's got to be expensive. You know what I mean? For the Old School, they all they had to do was rent a house, but they did have a ton of big names. I remember Snoop's in there, and they had a really, some big name actors and stuff, but they weren't huge at the time. This was all Vince Vaughn was barely discovered. Will Ferrell, he had done SNL, but he hadn't really taken off yet. Luke Wilson, so I wonder how much of the budget actually went into talent, as opposed to that fucking Mike Tyson and a
tiger.
Yeah. And they had what's the blonde's name? She was in Austin Powers. Fuck, I'm blanking. Heather Graham. Heather Graham. Fucking all-time smoke.
Don't you ever blank on Heather Graham. Listen, though, I'm saying 20 million, 35 million over the course of the way things moved in the 2000s from 2003 to 2009. I almost feel like they're kind of making this movie on a similar budget. You know what I mean?
Same director, I'd assume so.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Things got more expensive 6 years later. Yeah. But I'm imagining they're probably spending the same amount of money on talent, and it's like there's a lot of CGI in these.
And the formula is pretty much the same as far as build the cast, build the story kind of thing. You know what I mean? So so then we're gonna move on to opening weekend box office gross. Opening weekend box office for Old School 17.5 million. So they almost made their full budget back first weekend. Opening weekend box office gross for The Hangover, 44.9 million. So they made their shit back week 1, daddy. They were swimming in it. Worldwide box office gross for Old School, they topped out at 135.6 million. And then worldwide box office gross, and this is for Hangover Part 1, 467.5 million worldwide box office gross.
Not hard to argue. That movie was a rocket. That movie was an absolute rocket.
Yeah. Yeah. And there hadn't been I don't know. I'm trying to think of comedies that were around. I know the Step Brothers had come out before then, but that this is a rocket of a comedy, and everybody absolutely and everyone was talking about it. Movies were super big at that time. And then I want to do estimated DVD VHS sales. DVD VHS, it kind of started to taper off at this time. We're just about to get into streaming. So we're looking at 75 million in DVD VHS sales for Old School, and then 100 million for, I guess it would be just DVD sales for The Hangover. And then the studio. Could you guess the studio for Old School?
Was it Paramount?
DreamWorks Pictures.
Wow. All right. I would not have guessed DreamWorks.
Yep. And then Hangover was Warner Brothers. So I think Todd Phillips has been with Warner Brothers ever since then. I'd assume.
Yeah. And I think DreamWorks is
because DC is under Warner Brothers, and he did the Joker, and the Joker's part of DC. So
and I also think DreamWorks was an offshoot of Warner Brothers. So
Oh, I think
like
you're right. I think
for
you're
an
right.
early
Yeah.
movie, they gave him like, hey, we'll let the smaller production company produce it. But then once
Yeah.
he proved himself a couple times, they were like, all right, we'll throw the straight up Warner Brothers on you.
And
The
he's definitely
WB.
proved himself over and over again. Todd Phillips has been hitter after hitter. And it's like unique, like, dude, the one line of like, and it's Todd Phillips, he says, like, I'm here for the gangbang, right? Like, like, come on. That's like so unique. And I think that's what people needed. But that was the tale of the tape.